And I want to bring in Special Operations Commander and also National Security Expert, Major Glenn Ignazio. Major, first, I just want to get your take on what we were just seeing from Chuck Holton there on the ground, talking about this dam, because in the last few hours we've been seeing a lot of pleas from the president over there in Ukraine, Zelensky, basically pleading with the West somehow to basically send a warning to Russia, do not blow up the dam. I mean, that would be extraordinary if he were to do that. Do you think he is crazy enough to do it, even if it may even hurt his efforts in Crimea?
Yes, unfortunately, I think he would be. And then here's a couple of reasons why. Now, Kherson was a very, big stronghold, and it is significant if they lose that. And the idea that the Ukrainians are pushing Kherson, and the idea of protecting Crimea. If he blows the dam, it's going to flood that entire area and present a nice natural barrier between the Ukrainians and the Russian forces through Crimea. Now, we've seen that Putin has had no problem sacrificing people for no reason. But if he wants to hold territory, I could see him doing that. The intelligence reports state that the dam is currently mined. So I can see him doing something like this.
Wow. And then on the flip side, we have seen the Ukrainians, have been extraordinary. They are really showing incredible success. They've taken back a third of the north. The fight that they've had has been amazing, and they've had some big strides of late, which is maybe why he may do something crazy to respond. But it's been incredible, their advances of late, right, General? Major? Sorry, I promoted you there.
I'll take the promotion. That's nice. Thank you. But yeah, it has been significant. I was there a few months ago and seeing the resolve and actually the drive of the Ukrainian forces is phenomenal. But yes, you're talking about a 30% gain, and they pushed, the Russians out of a lot of territory. At the same time, the Russians have actually stepped out of some of the territories too. There's been a lot of logistics and communications that have been completely cut. The other thing is we approach the winter, and the winter is brutal over there. And so we see the preparations happening, and I think Russia's going to sort of hole up and try to secure through the winter times. But this is why that whole strike on the electrical and the infrastructure power grid is critical for Russia to make some gains by making the Ukrainian people suffer and forcing the government to focus on that.
What do you make of the fact there are now also reports, too, that have just been coming in the last few hours that the U.S. Army's 101st Airborne, that's the elite fighting force, is practicing for war with Russia just a few miles from Ukraine's border, 3 miles from Romania's border with Ukraine?
Yeah, I believe it's a smart call. This has to be contained. It has to be contained to Ukraine. And again, if something happens in a NATO country by Article 5, you're going to have all NATO countries respond accordingly. So the idea of keeping it contained is important. The other thing is if it doesn't get contained and it has to spill over, we want to push that and maintain that as much as in the territory to the east closest to Russia, right, including Ukraine. So the interesting part that you really need to focus on, too, is that we had an RC-135 rivet joint aircraft. It's basically an aircraft that gathers the signals and listens to what's going on the battlefield. It's important for us to know what's happening. An Su-25 flanker aircraft from Russia actually launched a missile the other day. Now, they're saying it's a malfunction, but there's so many steps that has to happen for that missile to come off the rail. That was against a UK aircraft, and it's a NATO aircraft. So there are mistakes that could actually trip this, not just actions, and that is something to be very, very careful about in combat.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I want to ask you about the role of Iran. It's interesting because, of course, it's allegedly those Iranian-produced kamikaze drones that are attacking the cities, the energy infrastructure also there, going, as we mentioned, a lot of civilian targets there in Ukraine. It's interesting because I was seeing reports that Iran has told all their citizens basically to leave Ukraine, too, immediately. How do you see their role coming into all of this, playing a bigger now military role?
Yes, it has increased considerably, not only with actual weapons like you're seeing with these drones and everything, but there's actually an Iranian presence that has been identified with intelligence resources within Crimea. So the Russians were having trouble flying these drones, and they were crashing, and there's some issues with them, of course. But Iran is now on the ground in Crimea teaching the Russians how to fly it, and it's suspected that they're actually flying some of these for them. So there has been an escalation, not just in equipment, but actually in manpower. So that is really a delicate situation right now.
Yeah, it is. Boy, there are so many things that are just extremely delicate, as you point out, with all these equations between Iran, Russia. You got the dam. You've got U.S. forces there preparing. And of course, we're just keeping Ukraine in our thoughts and prayers. Major, thank you very much. Great to have you here on the show.
Nice to have you, and appreciate it. Have a good morning.
Thank you. You too as well. And everybody